Well folks, today we are at the former RAF Kemble, now known as Cotswold Airport. Many buildings, I believe quite a few aircraft dotted around as well. I've never been here before, so I'm not quite sure what we're going to expect. I caught a glimpse of a Bristol Britannia, so that all seemed quite promising, and lots of old concrete hangars too. So we're just going to drive around here. There is a nice aviation themed cafe apparently, and well, let's have a bit of a drive around, get the lie of the land, see what gems we can spot of an aviation interest. Ooh, lots and lots of aircraft come here to die. We can see a BA 747 over there. There's a lot of old airliners come here and then they're broken up, disassembled, sold for parts, and the rest recycled. So maybe we'll get a shufty at some of those while we're here. Wow. I think we know what we're going to have a first look at. It is jolly breezy. Several years ago, British Airways repainted several of their 747s in the old retro liveries. One was BOAC. I think sadly they chopped that one up. But this is the old school British Airways livery, the Negus design, I think it was called. Technically, this model of 747 never flew in this particular colour scheme, but we won't split hairs too much. Most of the other ones I think were chopped up, but this one came to be preserved here at former RAF Kemble, now Cotswold Airport, and it is fantastic to see it here. It's very unusual to see a 747 preserved, well, anywhere. These are very big things to look after. I don't know of any other 747s that are preserved here in the UK, so it's a real treat to see this one. Hope you can hear me okay. It's very windy. Yeah, how cool is it to see a 747 up close like this? I remember years ago I was at Bruntingthorpe and there was one being broken for parts, and I managed to have a clamber on board it. And when you sit up in the cockpit up there, you really are a long way from the ground. Back in the 1980s, I visited a pen pal in Germany, and we got a tour of the Lufthansa engineering bay at Frankfurt Airport, and we managed to get pretty close access to some 747 cargo aircraft. But yeah, what a treat to be able to get up so close to the majestic Boeing 747, the original jumbo jet. There's a little home built just running up behind me. I know they do hire this out for events and probably wedding parties, that kind of thing. But to be able to get this close to such an iconic aircraft. Here in the UK, there may be one or two of these preserved in the States, I guess. But here in the UK, this is pretty much unique, I would have thought. So you'll forgive me for having a good look around this. But yes, this is the Negus livery, so-called livery that they used. I think they started out in the 70s. And it's got British Airways on the side. Later they went to just British, and then they changed it all together. The mighty Rolls-Royce engines there. We can actually walk right next to the outer engine here and under the end of the wing. So this would have been flown in here just a few years ago. G-CIVB Charlie India, was it Victor Bravo? This reminds me of many years ago. We used to visit the RAF Cosford Museum, and British Airways had a collection of old airliners on display there. A VC-10, the Trident, the Boeing 707, also a 4-engine jetliner. But yeah, what a cool place. I'm so glad we popped in here. Look at the size of the tail. Just awesome. The scale of this thing is just mind-blowing, really. As I mentioned before, lots and lots of aircraft come here to die and be recycled. Got a couple of China Southern something or others, Airbus I think. Looks like they're here for the chop. Some bits will be preserved, engines, flight, you know, some of the electronic gear, that kind of stuff. That one's already been stripped of its power plant by the look of it. Sometimes people keep the cockpit and do fun things with them, glamping pods and all that kind of thing, but yep, their flying days sadly are over. Yeah, Airbus A319s, both of them. Wonder how long ago these flew in. Yeah, flying days very definitely over. Good to see lots of the old concrete hangars over there as well. You can just see the tail of something sticking out from within the ASI hangar over there. Wonder what that is. Next to the control tower I spy Arrows Gnat in the livery of the Red Arrows. The Red Arrows used to fly those back in the 1970s, but have flown Hawks for many years. There is the magnificent 747. I spy part of I can just about see a twin seat Hawker Hunter over there, and just in front of the 747 there is another English electric Canberra, so I'll definitely have a closer look at them. Here is the English electric Canberra XH134, the registration number, a classic British jet operated by the RAF from the 1950s, and for quite a long time. There may still be one or two of these still airworthy, possibly in other parts of the world. But yeah, great to see this English electric, just one of quite a few aircraft manufacturers that were producing jets and such like following the Second World War. Maybe the most famous of all was the Lightning. This one has the offset cockpit. I forget the precise model. It's PR9, so it's that photo reconnaissance, I think. This one built in October 1959. If you want to pause the video, you can read all the blurb there. Certainly been around a bit. Retired to Kemble Airfield, now Cotswold Airport, July 2006. This one had a major service in 2012, took to the skies again in 2013, appeared at the Goodwood Revival. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's pretty cool to see that here, so I bet that's not a million miles away from still being airworthy. Probably isn't going to happen, but it'd be nice to think that maybe one of these would be seen again in the skies over the UK, but seems probably a bit unlikely now, I would have thought, but great that it's still being looked after here. I know there is a Buccaneer preservation group somewhere here on the airfield, and of course there's the lovely Bristol Britannia, which I'm going to go and find as well before we disappear. So before I forget, it'd be rude not to feature this ex-British Airways Mercedes vehicle here. And steps up to the mighty 747. Looking a little faded now on an M registration, but yeah. Another important part of the fleet of vehicles that BA and all the other airlines would have operated and used in order to keep these magnificent old aircraft in the air. Pretty substantial set of undercarriage under there as well. It'd be rude not to have a closer look at this lovely 2.5 litre V8 powered Daimler, the SP250, or Dart as it was originally going to be called. Fiberglass body, very distinctive styling indeed. This one on its original registration number 632 HRH. Pretty groovy car. Neat to see it out and about today. Today is a Tuesday. Yeah, lovely, with his master's voice radio as well. Like that kind of thing. Yeah, what a beauty. And just close by to the 747 is this XE665 two-seater version of the Hawker Hunter, just like the Canberra, a product of the early post-war years. There's the old control tower, and here is the beautiful Hawker Hunter. What a swish looking aircraft, beautiful looking thing. Just get the bushes out of the way. So what's the history with this one, I wonder? Hawker Hunter T8 XE665, built by Hawker Aircraft Blackpool Limited. So went into service May 1955. Even had an accidental collision with a fuel bowser, apparently. What a thing. Beautiful looking aircraft. So this is a two-seater side-by-side seating. Still very much an active airport. You've got the extra fuel tanks there. What a great place. You can just come here, have a wander around, pop into the cafe. Yeah. I'd be here all the time if I lived down this way. Proper 50s jet. Super sleek. Yeah, proper thing. Wonder if one of those would fit in the garden. I did see a mention online somewhere that there is one of these up for grabs somewhere. But I'd have to run that by management, I think. As I mentioned before, there is a group here somewhere on site at Kemble dedicated to the preservation of the Blackburn Buccaneer, and here we have the cockpit section of a Blackburn Buccaneer, this one in the livery of the Royal Air Force. Just find out a bit more about it. There we go, the Buccaneer Aviation Group based at Cotswold Airport. Two are maintained in fully functional ground running condition. That's pretty cool. Yeah, these were a serious bit of kit, these were. I wonder where the rest of it is. And here is the preserved Folland Gnat. Like I say, in the livery of the Red Arrows aerobatic display team. I don't think this was an original Red Arrows aircraft, but it's in that finishing paint scheme that this one is being preserved. That's pretty cool to see that. I well remember these at air shows back in the 1970s. Barton, the Woodford Aerodrome, that kind of place. Yeah, very neat little aircraft. Very agile little aircraft indeed these were. Looks like there's a few more scrappers over that side of the airfield. You can actually drive. There's like a perimeter road that runs around the outside of the airfield, somewhere over there. Yeah. I think they've taken their last passengers as well. Rolls-Royce Neen jet engines.
Isn't going anywhere, it's just been spinning around on the floor.
Well, it didn't take long to find the magnificent old Bristol Britannia. There is a website dedicated to the preservation of this aircraft, and there is some fantastic footage of when this was delivered here. I think it's back in the mid-2000s, something like that, and the pilot of it put on a very spirited display indeed. I think it was the final flight of a Bristol Britannia. What an incredible aircraft that is. I think they call them, is it the Whispering Giant or something, I think they call them. And the Phantom Preservation Group are also here, the F4 Phantom. I've been binge watching a few videos about Phantoms recently. I didn't know this one was going to be here though. So once we park up we'll have a closer look at that. What an incredible thing that is. Looks like it's being repainted. And more 747 action. Oh, look at that. Wow, engine's off. Good grief. I'm officially quite excited. There is a car behind, so I'll just pull over and let him go past, because he's probably not as excited as I am. I don't think anyone in this car is as excited as I am, but never mind. Let's see how far we can sneak up here before we get arrested. But yeah, wow, look at that. What a majestic machine that is. Looks like it's in for the chop. Yeah, no engines in that one. You can see the empty engine cowlings, but yeah, wow, look at that. What an incredible thing. No obvious registration number on this one. The operator's name on the side has been painted out. Let's get as close as we can to the fence. If you know who operated this one, please pop a note in the comments. I'd be really interested to know. And over there is the Buccaneer Preservation Group. I don't think we're allowed through that far, unfortunately. But there are. I wish the camera would focus. Will the camera focus? Probably not. Let's see if we can get. There we go. A bit of Buccaneer action over there, but I think it is behind security, which is just over there. So I don't think we can get through, unfortunately. And that's where the Buccaneers are. But at least we can have a closer look at the Britannia in the Mo and the F4 Phantom that's being repainted. But yeah. What a lovely old thing. Note the stack of packing cases at the back, just to support the back end should it decide to tip over. Yeah, fantastic. There's a fuselage of something fairly small just over the back over there. Yeah. Interesting place. This is the magnificent McDonnell Douglas F4 Phantom. This one currently being restored to static display condition by the look of it. Looks like the last livery that it ran was for the Boscombe Down, the Air Research Institution. Yeah, fantastic bit of kit. These are proper heavy metal, designed in the late 1950s, operated by various different air forces, and I think the Turkish Air Force still operate the F4 Phantom. They're designed with carrier work to operate off aircraft carriers. The wings hinge here, so the end of the wings would hinge on there and fold up to save space when being stored in an aircraft carrier. How cool is that? XT597. And there it is, the Whispering Giant. What a beauty. XM496, the registration number, the Bristol Britannia, this one in the livery of the Royal Air Force Transport Command. They were also operated as airliners. BOAC, various other airlines as well did operate them. And the youthful assistant has spotted that it is actually open, so we can go in and have a look. Entry is free. Any donation to keep her from the breaker's torch would be very much appreciated. So a bit of history here, so let's have a quick shufty at that. This was built in Belfast, made their first flight 24th of August 1960. So that's almost 65 years ago to the day. We are in August at the moment. So 65 years ago. Wow. Final flight to here was made in October of 1997, the world's only complete RAF Britannia. There is a Britannia on display at the Royal Air Force Museum at Cosford, so I'm not sure how complete it is. But yeah, what a treat to be able to go and have a look inside. Band of volunteers keep this beauty in the condition that you see here. There's a gentleman down there cleaning the tailplanes. But, wow. Yeah, so last flew 1997, mind your head. Oh, big thanks to the volunteers here for letting me have a good close look around the cockpit. So this is the only original, completely original RAF example. The one at Cosford that I was thinking of, that was BOAC and then repainted into RAF livery once at Cosford. Here we go, fantastic. Yeah, look at it all still there. It's not been disassembled. No one's got at it and nicked all the bits, because often switchgear and instrumentation disappears. But isn't this just wonderful? The Whispering Giant. Look at all the proper old school flying environment. None of your glass screens here, just many gauges. Of course, with 4 engines, you've got 4 of pretty much everything, especially in the centre section there. You've got the throttles here for the 4 engines. Yeah. The propeller, so I'm assuming, yeah, forward and reverse. Wow, isn't that just great? But yeah, it's well worth looking out the website for the preservation group who look after this beauty, because there is a video of this being delivered, and it was a very spirited delivery. Yeah, what a great thing. Yeah. Proper old school. Here is the preservation group who've been looking after this beauty for so many years. 1997 it arrived here. XM496.com. There is the very spirited, there's a picture of the very low demonstrations that were performed here on its final flight before being pensioned off. But it's well worth checking out the website and watching that video, because it is pretty spectacular. Isn't it wonderful? Yeah, let's just have another quick look at the pointy end. So presumably this is all the navigator's gear over here. The gentleman that we interrupted was just inspecting this parts manual here. Look at this. So this is a genuine ex-RAF aircraft. It was sold off, I think, in the 1970s and operated in various other countries as a cargo aircraft, I believe. Got a lovely lamp. Then it came back here to Kemble for preservation and put back into its RAF livery. There are some photographs just along here of the aircraft in some of its other guises. There it is, sold to AFREC back in 1976. That's this aircraft. Then to Aero Caribbean in 1984. Operated around Cuba.
It doesn't make much difference when you're in.
And there it is in another livery as well. Fantastic. And then Transair Cargo donated this aircraft to the Preservation Trust, re-registered it for its final flight to RAF Kemble. Lots and lots of aircraft, of sister aircraft, and also some of their fates broken up. So quite a few aircraft were made, but very few survive now. Which is why it's so cool to see this one. Here's the history of this particular aircraft, all written down, so just pause the video if you want to have a read of this. Fantastic. All sorts of memorabilia on display here in the Britannia. Photographs, memorabilia, squadron details here. It's a very fine model of this aircraft. Fantastic. Some of the seating in place just to show the rear facing seating. This was a thing on Royal Air Force transport jobs. VC-10s also had rear facing seating like this. What a treat. If you find yourself in Gloucestershire, definitely try and get over to this, the Cotswold Airport, because there is so much to see. And this is just during the week. I'm sure at the weekends there'll be a lot more going on as well. Yeah, fantastic. And we're going right up into the tail section of the aircraft now. This is where the little boy's room is, and the little girl's room alongside. Oh, what a fantastic job they're doing looking after this beautiful old Bristol Britannia. I'll try and negotiate the stairs now without falling over, and we'll have a bit of a wander around the outside and just admire the exterior of this classic British machine. Right, safely down. Right, let's go and have a look over here. Like I said, this does really remind me of the one at Cosford. As the gentleman there pointed out, this one is in RAF livery, Transport Command, and that's what it was used for when it was new. Whereas the one at Cosford, I remember it actually now I think about it, in BOAC livery back in the 1980s. Wow, what a beauty. There is the cockpit section, part of the cockpit section of one of these at the museum at Filton, where the final Concorde was flown into. that example of the Britannia sadly ended up being put down in the Severn and the mudflats alongside the River Severn, which isn't far from here. It was on a demonstration flight to try woo a new customer, and the aircraft was fished out, and the cockpit section, I think it's the cockpit section, ended up going into preservation and is on display at the Filton Museum alongside Concorde and lots of other exhibits. But it's pretty cool to see this complete example here. What a treat. You see lots and lots of the smaller RAF aircraft, your Spitfires and your Hurricanes at museums, but to look after something of this scale, especially outside, is a real task. So hats off to everyone involved with the preservation of 496. Another fantastic old hangar there, lots and lots of those here. Oh, Triumph TR2. By gum, wasn't expecting to see one of those here today. Yep, this is definitely a place worth visiting if you find yourself in this neck of the woods. The cafe looked really good as well. We didn't go in there because we had a brew in the village just down the road before we came here, but it did look very swish indeed. Repainting the upper surfaces of the starboard wing. Fantastic. Well, I think we've probably seen most of the things here. That's the former RAF Kemble. We're just chatting to a gentleman underneath the Britannia. Turns out he's a follower of both our channels, and he'd just been watching about Harley passing his driving test, that's pretty cool. Oh, I spy a gap in the fence, so let's go and have a bit of a closer look at this incredible restoration project. I think restoring the A40 is going to be a big job. Try taking on something like this. This really puts it in context when you look at these aircraft. And that Britannia, I mean, wow, that is a big aircraft to look after. Just have a quick peer in here where the engines would have been. Can't imagine there's anything in there anymore. No, that's where one of the two, I think they were Pratt & Whitney, although the RAF did have their own engines, I believe, in the aircraft that they had. And I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that this, when these were operated on aircraft carriers, this would have hinged down, and they put like the arrestor cables across the deck of the aircraft carrier to slow the aircraft down rapidly, and this would have been down and would have caught here, hence those scuffs there. That would have been catching the arrestor cable on an aircraft carrier, as far as I know. Yeah, quite the project. Yeah, fantastic. Maybe one day we'll get back here when this has all been repainted. What a fascinating place. If you're in the area, get yourself down to Cotswold Airport. Just as we were driving out, I spotted this bit over here. Another separate apron altogether, with more aircraft being broken for parts. Look at those, two 727s. Wow, Boeing 727s, the triple engine jobs. I did see another 747 over the back over there somewhere as well. So we'll see if we can get a bit of a closer look at that. But yeah, fantastic. I haven't seen a 727 in years. Being a former plane spotter of the 1980s, I well remember Dan Air, companies like that, flying 727s in and out of Manchester Airport, or Ringway as it was. But yeah, I haven't seen one of these probably for 30 years. What a treat. The aircraft further along look like they are being dismantled, but I wonder if the 727s are just in storage. I'd like to think so. Right, let's get going. We're just on the A429, which heads down the other side of the perimeter of Kemble Airfield. You can see a couple of 747s over there. Looks like their days are numbered. A few other aircraft as well. I can just about see the distinctive T-tail of one of the 727s. Interesting place. There is a convenient lay-by here. And if we just hop over the road, we can get a proper look at some of the other aircraft that are in here for braking. Wow, look at them. I'll try poking the camera over the top. Oh, there are 3 727s here. By gum. I wonder if we can get through the netting with the camera. The rest of the Jones clan do love a drive out in the countryside of an afternoon.